There are millions of podcasts being done all over the world that take on the personalities of their creator. Some bring in thousands of listeners each week. Some bring in large amounts of revenue, while others entertain millions and help sell products. If you're like many podcasters, you want to reach your maximum potential. But how? How do you make your podcast stand out from all the rest? Join Dr. Barrett Matthews as he talks to experts who are doing it on The Productive Podcaster. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of The Productive Podcaster. I am the host, Dr. Barrett Matthews, and man, do I have a great show for you today. My guest is somebody that I really love to talk to. Is a good friend of mine, but we're going to get to that in a minute. For those of you who are wondering for the first time, what is The Productive Podcaster? Well, I'm going to tell you. Just relax. The Productive Podcaster is a podcast for people interested in podcasting. It is for those people who may already have a podcast but want to take it to another level and may want to get some tips, may want to get some pointers or some ideas. And it may be for those people who are thinking about podcasts, who've been contemplating it, but you're trying to see, oh, do I have that right? Do I have that right? And I'm here to show you that there is no cookie cutter way to run a podcast. We have several people who have different ways they do their podcast. And I want to show you what's special about theirs. So maybe you'll get something that'll help you with theirs. So that is what the Productive Podcast is all about. Now, one thing I want you to do before we go any further, I want you to share this with people. Let everyone know that you are paying attention to the Productive Podcaster and you're subscribing, so they should be subscribing to the Productive Podcaster. Deal? Deal. Okay, so now I like to start off every show with a segment that I like to call Pros and Cons.
Pros and Cons.
Now, what is Pros and Cons? Pros and Cons is a segment where I like to give a pro tip to help you be productive and profitable as well as professional in your podcast. So today we're talking about what's your podcast for? And I say that because I consult with a lot of people on producing their podcast. And I always ask them, what is your podcast for? Who is it for? Why are you doing it? And there are various reasons. Some people do it because they want to bring in more clients. Some people want to have more students. Some people want to bring in more income. Some of them want followers. Some of them want people to hear their message. Some of them feel that they were called to do it. There are a lot of various reasons. Some of them do it just for fun. But you need to know why you're doing yours, because that will determine how you should run it, how your goal should be set in place, and so forth. So before you get your podcast going, know why you're doing a podcast. So that is today's pros and cons. So what we're going to do right now, we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to be right back with a very special guest. And I know you're saying it again, Barrett, you say that about all of your guests. I told y'all before, don't hate me because my guests are cool. Don't hate me because I know some very good people in this world. You know, you can know them too. That's why I'm introducing them to you. So just stay tight, stay right here. We'll be right back with more of the Productive Podcast. Why should you contact Media Boss Club right now? Well, because you can get a podcast done for you. You can learn all the aspects that go into putting together a great podcast and have someone else do it for you. That's right. We will build your podcast around your content and make it so you can concentrate on the money-making activities of your business. Contact MediaBossClub.com. That's MediaBossClub.com today and let us get your podcast started right now. How are you going to learn everything you need to know about starting a podcast? Well, at the Create Your Podcast Weekend, we put it all in 2 days and help you get your podcast going by next week. That's right, by next week. All you have to do is come to the Create Your Podcast Weekend and let us show you how to get your podcast up and running. We will show you how to attract listeners. We will show you how to get people to pay you for your products and services. What products and services? The products and services we show you how to create, all at the Create Your Podcast Weekend. All you have to do is go to createyourpodcastweekend.com and get registered today. And we have special bonuses. Some of you will even get us to give you the equipment to start your podcast. That's right. We're going to give some of you the podcasting equipment to get started. Go to createyourpodcastweekend.com. That's createyourpodcastweekend.com and get started on your podcast by next week. Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Productive Podcaster. As I said, I'm Dr. Barrett Matthews. And as I told you before we went to break, I have a very special guest today. Why is this guest so special? Because he is a longtime friend of mine. We went to college together. And yes, long time, meaning I went to college a long time ago. But we have known each other since college. And the great thing about it is how life works is that he and I are in the same space, so to speak. Now, we're in that speaker world where we go around speaking at different events and educating and informing people. And his specialty is networking. If you've ever thought that you could do more business if you were better at networking, he is the man to talk to. At this point, he is the foremost authority on that topic. So I want to bring, without any further ado, to the Productive Podcaster, none other than my friend, Mr. Ray Abram. Ray, welcome to the Productive Podcaster, my man.
Thank you so much there, Barrett. It's a pleasure being here with you. I love what you're doing, and I appreciate your support and those kind words.
Man, I appreciate you too. Let me tell you, man, Ray, and like I said, we've known each other for a long time, but the cool thing about it is that you chose to become a speaker a little later in the game than most people do. Now, I did too, but you came in a little later than me. But the great thing about it is I've watched this man work. I just so you know, I never told you this, I've watched and I've admired your work ethic and the way that you have grown and built your platform and built your business to the fact that now people are calling on him to speak at all these different events because he has built this platform. And it's something to admire. For those of you who are looking to start a podcast, if you want to get more notoriety, Ray is definitely one of the people you could model for sure. So Ray, I wanted to ask you, why networking?
Man, I tell you, because I was terrible at it. I really, there's an old saying, doctor, heal thyself. And so part of why I got into this is because I was bad at it. And I didn't know I was bad at it. I just knew that I wasn't getting the results that I was looking for in life. My relationships weren't right. My money wasn't right. Whenever there was layoffs at the job, I was always on the short list.
Wow.
And I just, I guess about 5 years ago, kind of said, well, you've probably heard the statement that that no matter where you are, you're there.
There you are. Yeah.
Totally wrong, but it was me. You can blame the job, the economy, the other folks, but at the end of the day, if you have a recurring issue, chances are the problem is you. And so once I realized that, and I had to kind of ask myself, what is my biggest challenge? And that was really connecting with people. I mean, people say, I'm smart enough. I'm not a terrible looking guy. I could do the job, but I wasn't getting the results. And so I realized as I did some introspection that it was me, and I wasn't able to form those good, lasting relationships that would help me succeed. And so once I learned how to do that, my life changed. I mean, it was a 180-degree turn.
Really?
I went from just really, not, I shouldn't say a bad life, but I just wasn't enjoying life, to now things of, 180 degrees. I used to sit at home and wonder, and scroll social media, and I never got invited to things. I would just kind of be home. And now, as a matter of fact, to speak tonight, I have to be 4 different places at the same time tonight. Right?
Wow. Break out the clones.
So it just went from never being invited, never being that guy, to now I have to monitor the the things that I'm invited to, because that has become overwhelming. And so just kind of going from that guy who was just always by myself to being that guy now who has, groups of friends and surrounded by good relationships, all because I learned how to do it. And that's what I want to show other people, because I think there's millions of people like me who, go to events and just stand on the wall or sit at home and don't even bother going, or they believe that networking doesn't work for them. And so I want to show them that it can if you learn how to do it properly. So that's
I agree with you. I mean, and that's the thing. Networking, I had to learn networking myself. And it was one of those things where I just thought networking was just going to a meeting and then just meeting people at a meeting. And it's so much more than that. And I find that I had someone call me the networking king, and I'm like, I don't know why, because all I was doing was going to different events. That's all I was doing. But I realized later that I make more connections now without going to events, because I do more organic networking. Because when I went to those events, I was going for the purpose of getting a certain number of business cards and this, these are the whole routine. But now I just meet people, and it organically turns into relationships. And I know that's one of the things that you are very high on, is relationship. And that's what turned it around for me. So yeah, I can appreciate that. So let me ask you something. How did that morph into a podcast?
Well, I wanted to get my message out, and the more people, because what I found is that many entrepreneurs, and particularly successful ones, have a story about how a relationship got them to where they are. Unfortunately, I think there's a message out there now that, just keep working harder. If you're not seeing the results you want, just keep working harder, grind, posting to social media, right? Advertising, doing your Facebook ads and your Twitter ads, yada, 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 funnels. And
Right.
If you have good relationships, right, then people will send you business.
That's true.
Right? That's really what it boils about. Do people know you, like you, and trust you? Right? In social media and advertising, you try to shortcut that, right? You pay to shortcut that. However, the problem with that is if you're a small business, you're just starting out, you don't have the money, you can't afford to compete and buy enough ads to continue to grow your business. So that leads to business failure or frustration at spending all this money. However, networking, you know how much it costs you to network? Nothing. It's free, right? Go meeting someone, it's free. Just being intentional. The key is meeting the right kind of people, right? Being intentional. I think about even you and our relationship.
Yeah.
It's intentional, at least on my part. I said, Barrett is a type of person I need to have in my network.
Same here.
Exactly. And so because of that, I'm here with you, right? On this, world famous, all around the world, talking to your audience based on a relationship. And so the reason I started a podcast is so that to give entrepreneurs an opportunity to tell their story about how a relationship or relationships help them become successful in business, so that other entrepreneurs hopefully will get that message and know you don't have to advertise your way to success. You can.
I love that.
Meet the
I
right.
love that. That's a great reason. Now, your podcast is relatively new, correct?
Yes. Yeah. Just a little over 2 months.
Okay. So I want to ask you this: what kind of challenges have you run into?
Oh, wow. The challenge
for that person is looking to start one.
Right. Is wow. I'm trying to think of the biggest is promotion, right? Is
okay.
When you're new, just getting the word out. And I think part of that is getting the right guests, right? Of course, if I can get Elon Musk on, then, boom.
He's on next week on mine.
There's certain guests that I think would help. But the biggest challenge for me has been, just being patient. I know it just takes time. You just got to keep posting. You'll get the 9 views
Mm-hmm.
12 views, and it's frustrating because it takes so long and so much work to edit that thing. I mean, it takes hours. First you got to find the person, invite them, do the interview, edit it, get the sound quality and all of that. Takes maybe for me, I would say probably a 6 hour, 6 hours of work. And I don't even have enough views yet for YouTube to give me the analytics. I click analytics and they're like, sorry, sir, what you want me to tell you? My analytics basically said, what you want me to tell you? I mean, ain't nobody coming, bro. What you want? I mean,
I'm gonna have to talk to you about having my team produce your podcast for you. I do none of the editing. I just host the show and I have my team do the rest for me because and as you know, I was a media major in college. I don't want to do any more editing.
I am with you on that, brother.
We'll talk on that.
I do enjoy doing some of it. At some point, I definitely need to have a team do it, right? I want to free up that time, but I also want to learn,
right. Learn the skill yourself. So you know what they're doing.
Know what they're doing, know what to ask for, and so I'm right now, I consider it an investment in time to learn it so that I can communicate better with the team.
I hope everyone's listening to that. He wants to learn the skill so that he can show his people what to do.
Yeah.
And see what I'm doing, and I like that. What I'm doing with my person who is now doing editing, I'm having her learn other skills so that when we bring on other people, I'm going to put her in a position to manage them.
Oh, that's great.
So she knows what they need to do. And so that's the whole thing. But it's imperative at some point that you build a team around what your podcast, around your, because it can be a challenge, but it can also turn into quite an entity of its own. So it's a great thing now. Now, how has it been with you as far as booking guests?
So far it hasn't been tough because I've been getting just people I know. I'm just kind of starting out.
Good way to start.
Yeah, low hanging fruit. Just people that are already in my network. People who have put me on their podcast. Matter of fact, you'll be getting invitations.
Okay.
I've done a few podcasts over the past year, and so I just returned the favor, and so it's just kind of low hanging fruit.
I mean, and it's the smartest way to do it.
Yeah,
it's a no-brainer, really.
And then then the goal is, and part of my strategy is really just these books. I just want to get the authors of these books.
That's a great strategy. Get someone like an Elon Musk on there.
Yeah, I've read their book, and just kind of like, of course, you got to book them out, sometime in the future. But that's kind of the plan: is continue to follow, comment. I use the $1.80 strategy from Gary Vee, and
yeah. Now I like what you said when you mentioned like the biggest challenge is promotion. It's funny. I asked that question to a lot of people, and you're the first person that actually said that. And to me, that was mine.
Yeah.
That was mine. A lot of people mention more technical stuff.
Oh.
And in promotion, I think is probably the biggest challenge for most people, really, if they really break it down. Unless you already had a huge following that was just waiting on you to start a podcast.
Right. Then, if you already have a following, then to your point, just post it, but promotion's easy. The harder part for them would be, the editing and the quality.
Yeah.
But honestly, just like what we're doing, just a Zoom call, you really don't even have to edit it. I mean, that's just if you want to, you don't have to just.
Yeah. I mean, and the thing is, most podcasts are not even video.
Yeah, just audio. Exactly.
Just talk. And I'm glad you brought that up because a lot of people, Ray, they feel that they have to be perfect. Like you say, it doesn't require editing. Editing is great, but a lot of people feel they have to be perfect before they put it out there. What do you say to that?
Yeah, and not at all. Not at all. People, people will be patient if they like your message. It's all about the message, not so much about the delivery. I mean, the delivery kind of can get you. Like, I think delivery can be important to someone who's newly being introduced to your brand. because you get a few seconds to make a good impression.
Yeah,
However,
yeah.
for someone who's already familiar with you,
Yeah. And I look at it like this. You talk about relationships a lot. I mean, nobody wants to be in a relationship with someone who's perfect. People want to know that you have some flaws because they can relate to those flaws too. And I don't, if I stumble over a word, I will keep going. I'm not editing it out.
Right. I use the analogy, and I heard this recently. I thought it was great, of Superman. Right. They had to give up. The original Superman concept was undefeatable. He was, how do you beat Superman? You can't. Right. I mean, nobody in the universe can beat Superman.
Right.
Unless you have what?
Kryptonite.
Unless you have, right. And it's so ridiculous that you got these rocks from a planet somewhere else in space, but we got to have something. There's got to be something that you can use to beat this guy, and that's the only thing. So, people, that makes him relatable, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the way he can become human.
Yeah.
So
that's good. I like that.
Yeah. So yeah, be human, be authentic. People do like that authenticity. They like behind the scenes. They do appreciate when you say, "Oh, I messed up," and it's okay. So,
it's okay. It's okay. And I think people appreciate that a lot more because they think, okay, that person is like me, they're not perfect. And people like and it's okay to make fun of yourself. It's okay to make fun of yourself. When you mess up, it's okay to fumble over a word and say, boy, my mouth's not working today, something like that. It's okay. People can relate to that and they like it. So don't feel you have to be perfect, because I always tell people this, right? We all know that nobody's perfect, right?
Right.
So why are we trying to be something that we know is unattainable?
Right.
It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. So, Ray, before I let you go today, brother, I want you to tell everyone the name of your podcast and where they can find it.
Sure. So it's called Connected. It's a podcast for entrepreneurs who know a thing or two about networking. You can find it on Podbean. So we're going to put it on Spotify. I just found out yesterday that there's something I have to do extra to Spotify. But right now it's on YouTube. So you just Google me, just Ray Abram. You can pull up the video versions on YouTube, and it will be on Spotify here in the next day or so.
All right, fantastic. Guess what, guys? He's not going anywhere. He's going to stick around for one more segment. We have PodQuest coming up, but make sure you guys are subscribing to his podcast, and we'll be right back with more of The Productive Podcaster. Starting a podcast can be a daunting task. There's a lot that goes into it, and you're probably wondering if you're able to handle it. Well, why don't you just take 2 days and let us teach you how to do it at the Create Your Podcast Weekend. That's right. We're going to show you all the aspects of how to start your podcast, how to keep your podcast going, how to attract listeners, and how to make money with your podcast. CreateYourPodcastWeekend.com. Get registered right now. Let's face it, you've been talking about starting a podcast for quite some time, but you haven't started yet. Why is that? Could it be that you just don't have the time because your day-to-day keeps you so busy? Or could it be that you don't want to learn all the technical aspects that go into putting together a quality podcast? Well, at Media Boss Club, we take care of that for you. How would you like to have a done-for-you experience? That's right. At Media Boss Club, we build your podcast for you. We will edit your podcast. We will put in the music for you. We even put in commercial breaks that you can put your advertisers in. We will take care of all of the uploading to the great podcast platforms that are out there. That's right, we do everything. All you have to do is just right now go to MediaBossClub.com. That's MediaBossClub.com, and let us handle the heavy lifting for you. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Productive Podcaster. I told you my man Ray brought it. I want you guys to make sure you check out his podcast. He is the truth. But guess what? He's not gone anywhere. He's not gone anywhere because, guys, it is time for the segment I like to call PodQuest.
PodQuest.
Now, what is PodQuest? PodQuest is where we take a question from the audience. And today, Ray, I'm going to have you answer the question first. The question they have is, do I need to add a voiceover intro for my podcast?
Yeah, I mean, my personal preference is yes. I'm going to say yes. I don't know if you need it, but it does add a lot to the production quality of your podcast, and it gives people kind of a hook to know what it's about. Because again, if you have new people who are coming, they don't know what your podcast is about. The title quite often, like mine is connected. Like you don't know necessarily what it's about. Mm-hmm. However, voiceover, I talk, 5 seconds gives you an idea of whether you want to listen.
Now, I like that answer. And it's kind of like what he said, you don't need to. No, you don't need to. Sometimes the music can be enough, depending on what it is. Now, here's another thing. It also depends on who you are. Mm-hmm. And I don't want that to sound bad, but if you're famous, like I'll give it to you like this. Let's say it were somebody from a popular TV show. Let's just say it was the guy that played Greg Brady, Barry Williams. Let's say he was doing, and if he played the Brady Bunch, he doesn't need a voiceover because you know that song and you know what you're about to listen to.
Yeah.
So, but the thing is, if not, like Ray said, people need to know what they're getting ready to listen to. Now, also, your show notes need to be tight. Your show notes need to be able to tell them what it is. If you're not going to use a voiceover, and even if you are using a voiceover, make sure your show notes let them know what the show is about. So that way they can find out a little bit more about it. I'm like, I need to tighten up mine a little bit more as we say that. But the thing is, that's one thing that I recommend to you as well. So thank you, Ray, for that. And Ray, before I let you go, one more time, brother, please let everyone know the name of your podcast and where they can find you.
Sure. Again, my name is, the name of the podcast is Connected, a podcast for entrepreneurs who know a thing or two about networking. Right now, you can find it on Podbean. I think it's podbean.com, and also on YouTube, but we will also be distributing it on Spotify coming soon.
All right. Thank you. Always good talking to my good friend, Ray Abram. I want to make sure you guys subscribe to his podcast. Make sure you check him out. And please subscribe to the Productive Podcast as well. So guys, it's time to move on to a segment I love on the show, which is called our podcast profile. And there's a podcast that I had a chance to listen to that I think you guys may be interested in as well. And it's called Blind Spot. And it's brought to you by the History Channel. And it talks about points in history that we didn't know about. I just saw one that just listened to it rather, when it talked about the Tulsa Massacre in Oklahoma in 1921. For those of you who don't know, please check it out because a lot of people are just learning about this incident that happened in 1921. So check out Blind Spot. It's a great podcast. I think you guys may be interested in it. Also, it's time for our podcast giveaway, guys. It's time for our podcast giveaway. The giveaway today goes to none other than Mr. Eric Rustin. Eric is going to get an audio copy of my book, Why Didn't You Get It Done? Congratulations, Eric. You'll get that sent to you. Now, you're probably wondering, guys, how do you get a giveaway? How do you get your question put on the show? Well, it's very simple. Go to our Facebook group, which is called The Productive Podcaster. You go there, you engage. Now, when I say engage, I do not mean post about your business, post about your podcast. That's not what it's about. Engage means you either ask a question about podcasting or you provide some information that can help another podcaster to do better, but it's not about promotion, okay? Do that, you're going to get kicked out of the group, okay? So go to the Productive Podcaster group and go ahead and engage with the people and let everyone know you're there and let us say hello to you, and you may get a giveaway as well, just like Eric just got. So guys, before I sign off on the show, I like to give my productivity quote for the day. Today's quote comes from Mr. Tom Peters, and the quote is, "The simple act of paying positive attention to people has a great deal to do with productivity." Let me say that one more time. Tom Peters says, "The simple act of paying positive attention to people has a great deal to do with productivity. I think that's a great quote to end today's show with, definitely. So guys, once again, I want to thank you guys for joining the Productive Podcast. And make sure you're subscribing, make sure you're sharing it with people. Make sure you support my man, Ray Abram, because I want to thank him for being on the show today. And as I say before I sign off, don't just settle for being awesome. Set your goal to all them all. And take action, everybody. We'll see you next time on the Productive Podcaster. Thank you for joining us on the Productive Podcaster. Be sure to join us next time for another great show. We welcome your engagement, so make sure you participate by joining the Productive Podcaster Facebook group and chime in. Also, share the Productive Podcaster with some of your friends right now. If you have a podcast and you're looking for guests, or if you would like to be a guest on a podcast, join our podcast exchange at www.podcastworlddirectory.com. We'll see you next time.